Okay, time for a little inventory management. Today's learning objectives are to describe different inventory management methods, to evaluate inventory performance, to describe available informatics systems to assist with inventory management, to try to identify some common problems, and also practice secure inventory management to reduce shrinkage. So what should pharmacists know about inventory management? And what are some steps that pharmacists can take to control inventory? This is going to be sort of the focus or the theme throughout our presentation, trying to identify what you should know as not being a logistics or inventory expert, but as a pharmacy manager that's responsible for pharmacy inventory, and then what are some steps you can kind of take to control your inventory. Alright, so the main methods that I want you to focus on are visual, periodic, and perpetual. We'll walk through each one of these and I'll use some practical examples and give you some pros and cons for each. So the visual method is pretty basic. You'd walk to the shelf and look and see what's actually in stock. Now it sounds like this is not much of an inventory management method, but as a practicing pharmacist, I can tell you that the visual method is extremely important. This is where we're going to compare to what's on the shelf to maybe a set par level. So when you think of a par level, this is basically the stock depth or the reorder point. So if you set the par level to 100 tablets and once the inventory falls below 100 tablets to 99 tablets or what have you, it'll automatically generate an order for, or depending on your inventory system, that's how you would know when to reorder. So this is a manual ordering process. So if you do not use an inventory manager, you would need to periodically go throughout the shelves or essentially order as you go. So this actually is used quite a bit for pharmacies, especially for products that are not very common or maybe even over-the-counter products. So the staff may write down products throughout the day and keep stickers like in a book. So if you have stickers on each bottle. I know when I first started in pharmacy, our supplier would have stickers on the bottle. So you just peel a sticker off. It usually has like an item number, maybe the NDC or whatever, and you just keep stickers in a book. And at the end of the day, you just go bang out the order using that little book. Very manual process, but it's definitely helpful for a small pharmacy. What about periodic? This is essentially doing the same thing that you do with manual, except that you're conducting stock counts at regular intervals, so say weekly or bi-weekly or something. It's where you're comparing your supply to par levels again. But a major example that we do quite a bit in the pharmacy, this is like ordering our supplies, like vials, lids, paper. So if you think about our vials, most retail, and I'll use retail as an example, but most pharmacy operations are going to order supplies on a periodic visual basis. Like it's a combination of the two. Like you're looking, like say you dump your vials into a bin, you take them out of the box and put them in like a little drawer or something, and throughout the day you look down and see where you are on vials, and you go to your supply cabinet and see how many boxes are left of vials of each size or what have you. Maybe this is also how you do your over-the-counter products. So some over-the-counter products may not be in your pharmacy inventory system. So maybe they're ordered especially or outside through a different wholesaler, and so maybe you do that periodically as well. Perpetual inventory is a constant monitoring of the inventory, and is typically through the use of technology and informatics systems. So this is the preferred method for any large operation. Items are added when a pharmacy order is received, and then items are taken out during the dispensing or potentially the point of sale step. So electronically throughout the day, you have your NDC that if it has an accurate count in your computer system, anytime it falls below your par level, it does, it'll automatically order it for you versus you walking the shelf or whatnot. So as you can imagine, when we start thinking about pros and cons, and sorry, looks like my animation's screwed up. So here we'll look at all these together. So the pros of the three, when we look at the three systems, for the visual method, it's super low tech and it's easy to train. You basically say, here are, when the drugs run out, you count, have whatever's left in your vial or in your stock bottle, and you reorder as needed. Periodic is definitely helpful for the odd items that are not in computer. Definitely a common method for supplies. And perpetual, obviously the advantage is that it's a real-time system and it's typically automated, so it doesn't involve someone walking around the pharmacy with a pen and paper. Now, the disadvantage to the visual method is again, human error. Is probably the most basic way to think of disadvantage, and it's inefficiency. So imagine if you've got 1,000 different drug products in your inventory, manually checking each one of those can be quite cumbersome. The periodic method, cons again, manual counts are inefficient, human error as well. And again, it's a snapshot versus, so it's on that spectrum. It's a little bit more frequent than just a visual as you go method. But it's not as continuous as perpetual. And with perpetual, the biggest disadvantage is the reliance on technology. So it's really something that when you're thinking about managing a pharmacy, I highly recommend that you combine all three of these methods, and do them, do all three and understand the pros and cons, and implore the different ones throughout your practice. So for example, if you keep all of your stock, all your drug stock in a computer with a computer inventory, like a computer par level, and you have an accurate count in your computer, on a perpetual basis, it should order and reorder and reorder and reorder. However, you should have a combination of periodic and visual checks set up. So maybe you divide and conquer the pharmacy, and you have some pharmacy technicians, say you have a staff of 5 technicians. You divide up the pharmacy in 5 equal parts, and you have each technician assigned to a certain alphabet, or say a certain shelf or shelves of drugs, and you have them on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis go through and do visual counts and inspections of the on-hand inventories in the computer. This is going to be one of your better methods to quality control of your inventory management system. And you say, well, why is that? I mean, if you fix the inventory quantity once, why would you need to keep doing it every couple of weeks? The issue comes into, and again, this is through experience working with the major wholesalers, so McKesson, Cardinal, AmerisourceBergen. With drugs that aren't controlled, so typically you don't have this issue with control substances, but for some drugs that are in the large part of the order, there are times where you get shorted a product, and for whatever reason it doesn't get updated, so your computer thinks that you got a bottle of 100, but maybe you didn't, or maybe you got a larger supply that just didn't get updated appropriately. So let's talk about inventory performance. So how is our inventory management, or the success of our inventory management, measured? What are some factors that may influence these performance measures? And what steps can pharmacists take to improve their inventory performance? So some pretty common measures that you'll see are total inventory value, day supply, and inventory turnover rate. So let's just break these down. The total inventory value is pretty straightforward, okay? It's just a snapshot of the current inventory dollar amount. So it's measured at a point in time, or maybe as an average over a period of time. So an example would be January 1, the total value of the pharmacy inventory was $275,000. On January 31st, the total value of the pharmacy inventory was $325,000. So for the year, the average value of the pharmacy inventory was $300,000. Pretty straightforward. Again, it's a snapshot of the dollar amount in your pharmacy. So as you can tell, this isn't your total inventory value isn't a number of tablets or number of bottles or number of different drugs. It's measured in dollars, and that's important because it's essentially counting up your asset, which is inventory. So it's definitely an accounting function to figure out how many or how much money is essentially sitting on your shelves. What about day supply? So we hear day supply used a lot in pharmacy. It's essentially a calculation that's based on your inventory value, but it's as a function of cost of goods sold. So you'll take your average on-hand inventory. So let's say your average on hand for the month of August was $300,000, and that your annual cost of goods sold for the pharmacy was $3.65 million. So we'd count a day supply as our average on-hand inventory divided by our cost of goods sold, and we'll move that out to a for days. So that's why you multiply the 365 days. So in this case, 300K divided by 3.65 million times 365 gives us a day supply value of 30 days. Now what if we want to convert that to an inventory turnover rate? So it's the same calculation. We're using cost of goods, we're using average inventory, and it's typically an annual measurement. We want to, and sometimes you'll hear, how many times do you turn your inventory in a year? So again, if our beginning and ending inventory gives us an average inventory amount, in this case we have our 3.65 million as our cost of goods for the year, and our average inventory was 300K. We'd find out that that's about 12.17 turns. So again, a 30-day supply would translate into roughly that many turns. You'd say, yeah, we turn our inventory about 12 times a year. All right, so what factors influence inventory? Pharmacy type definitely has to be considered, whether it's retail, long-term care, maybe a specialty. Is it a mail order pharmacy that does 30 versus 90 day supplies, or 90 days versus 30, I should say? Does the pharmacy service more acute patients, or is it mostly maintenance refills? So you think with a mail order pharmacy, well, hey, we're going to be sending out 90-day supplies, so we have to have more, we have to have a larger inventory. Well, that may not be true if the majority of the dispenses are refills, because you can predict with refills, you can predict a usage amount and predict when you need to order order new supplies, versus acute settings where, say, you have a clinic that's or a clinic and a pharmacy right outside the clinic or right beside the clinic, and the clinic is what am I thinking? An urgent treatment center. So you're not real sure when patients are going to be coming in needing pain meds and antibiotics or whatnot, and so the patients aren't going to be able to wait on you to order an antibiotic or a pain med, so you're going to likely keep a lot of those drugs that you use on an urgent basis. You're going to keep a lot of those in stock. So I would say, if you have more acute patients, you're probably going to hold more inventory to meet demand. Versus mail order, you can essentially maybe plan out your inventory and do more of a just-in-time ordering. So you order drugs as refills are expected to be filled. What's the product mix of the pharmacy? So the main thing you want to focus on here is the generic dispensing rate. This is a big deal because there's a huge price discrepancy between generics and brand drugs, and so anyone who's worked in a pharmacy has probably noticed that your brand name drugs have a cost that may be 10, 20 times the amount of a generic that that treats a similar, or once it goes generic, you might see it really drop, or the price for the generic drop quite a bit. So generics may cost pennies, whereas Brands cost thousands of dollars. So um, if you have a pharmacy that sees a lot of, that uses a lot of brand name products, and this is where you might see a specialty pharmacy come into play. Um, your inventory, by the nature of the products that you're purchasing, um, your inventory value amount could be much, much greater. So rather than sitting on $300,000 worth of inventory, you might have $3 million worth of inventory. Now, when we say, now that doesn't mean your turns should be different. Your turns are going to be based on your cost of goods sold, or your value as a function of cost of goods sold. So in theory, a specialty pharmacy with a high dollar amount for the inventory should also have a high dollar amount for the cost of goods sold each year. So your turns can still be 12, 15, or whatever that number may be. But the total value amount may be very different, which is important again for your assets on your balance sheet. What's the volume of dispenses? Are we a high volume pharmacy? Is it a low volume pharmacy? High volume pharmacies sell more drugs. They may have more inventory on the shelf, but they turn the inventory over more quickly. So think about the pharmacies you work at, and you think, how frequently you get inventory orders in. What's the do you need to have enough stock to get to the next order? Like, what do you need for 2, 3, 4 days of supply? High volume pharmacies where you're dispensing in a week's time, you dispense 10,000 tablets of, say, like lisinopril 10 milligrams. You're going to dispense 10,000 tablets. You don't need to keep 10,000 tablets on hand for the week because you get 3 orders. So maybe you order 3,000 tablets, 3,000 tablets, every other day or something. So you create order points where you're just constantly getting in bottles, but you do it that way versus ordering these big lump sums and where you're not sitting on the inventory. What are the costs of being out of stock? So what are the chances that you'll lose a customer? This is something that can affect your inventory performance, because if you are, again, this goes back to like acute versus a lot of refills. If you service a patient population that, there's a pharmacy across the street, and there's you in that pharmacy, and there's a acute treatment center that services the patients go to both pharmacies. If you're out of stock, those customers are going to walk across the street and go to another pharmacy. So you may be more likely to keep a higher inventory volume to make sure you're not out of stock of certain products. Whereas if you're maybe a specialty pharmacy or a pharmacy that's owned by a pharmacy benefit manager, like an insurance company, that, hey, I mean, if you're out of stock, the patients have to use you because of the insurance maybe requires it or gives them all these incentives to use you. So maybe you're less concerned about being out of stock. Now, again, you're still going to be concerned about out of stock because you don't want customers to be upset, and you don't want that to be an issue that comes up when customers sign up for their benefits the following year. But it may not be the same level as a pharmacy that treats an acute population. Now, what about our wholesale contract terms? So this revolves around, like, how long do you have when you order a product to send the drug back and get full credit? I mean, this is really important because if you know that if you order a drug and you can't send it back, you may be less likely to keep a lot of drug on the shelf. So this eligibility for 340B contract pricing. So we talk about 340B contract pricing in one of our lectures around pharmacy laws. If you're able to purchase drugs at a 340B discount, ideally, or you would hope that your inventory would be lower. Now, with that said, if you have a mix of 340B and non-340B patients, it may not have a major impact. But ideally, the 340B contract pricing would lower the total inventory value. All right, so let's test this out a little bit. Let's see how we do. All right, so we have 2 retail pharmacies, Pharmacy A, Pharmacy B. Again, both retail. Pharmacy A is a rural pharmacy in a underserved or with an underserved population. So underserved meaning less affluent, poor population. 150 prescriptions a day is their volume, and they're located near an urgent treatment clinic. Pharmacy B, again, are also a retail pharmacy, but it's in a densely populated suburban area, more affluent customers. They do about double the prescription volume per day as Pharmacy A, and they are near a residential area. So based off these factors, if you had to pick one, which pharmacy is most likely to have a higher total inventory value? Again, so think about all the different factors. Which one would likely to be to have a higher total inventory value? What do you want to go with? All right, my guess would be Pharmacy B. So a couple factors when you're looking at this. Pharmacy B won by servicing a more affluent population. These are patients that are likely to use brand name products, so you're going to have a higher mix of brand versus generic, or in our generic dispensing rate. Two, we dispense more prescriptions per day, so we know to take that into account as well. And also, being near a residential area, um, you're probably going to have patients coming in for refills, or maybe they're getting 90-day supplies. But I think the main things for here are going to be the affluent suburban area and the actual prescription volume. So those are going to be your two major areas. On the side with the urgent treatment center, you may think, well, they're going to have to keep a higher inventory volume as well. But the actual total inventory value, I'm guessing Pharmacy B is most likely to. I don't think the urgent treatment center will have that big of an impact in terms of total value, because mostly urgent treatment clinics are going to dispense generic pain medications and antibiotics. So while you'll need to be able to keep a large stock of those, the total value shouldn't outweigh brand name products that you're filling refills for Pharmacy B. Now, which pharmacy is most likely to have a higher day supply? Okay, so the day supply, we're going to go with Pharmacy A. Now let's walk through this. So when I say a higher day supply, so is a higher day supply good or bad? So we think of a higher day supply meaning less turns throughout the year, and that's going to answer my third question, I guess. But a higher day supply because one, it you're having only 150 scripts per day versus 300 scripts per day, so you're less likely to turn through the inventory. But also, again, that urgent treatment clinic, this is where it may come into play, because while you have to maintain a high inventory of these generic prescriptions, you're not turning through it as fast. So if I were to ask also, then which pharmacy is most likely to have a higher inventory turnover rate? So if you guess that Pharmacy A has a higher day supply, then by the same nature that by the sheer math of it, the inventory rate should also be lower, right? So again, it's kind of an inverse. So if the higher day supply, so a 30-day supply, means you're going to turn an inventory about 12 times. Let's just say you had a 60-day supply, so if your inventory day supply was double that, that means your inventory turnover is not 12 but 6. Hope I didn't lose you guys with all that, but if you have any questions, just let me know, okay? Alright, now that we can measure inventory performance, how do we interpret what is good and what is bad? So inventory performance measurement goals that are good for a small retail pharmacy may be very bad for a closed-door specialty pharmacy. So what do I mean by that? A total inventory goal of total value, remember, of say $300,000 may be good, it may be bad for a retail pharmacy depending on its volume and its cost of goods sold. But $300,000 for a specialty pharmacy may be way too low. depending, because again, if some products in the specialty pharmacy cost $100,000, clearly you're not going to have those things in stock if you only have $300,000 worth of inventory on the shelf. So um, understanding like turn out whenever the value is high or low, like what's that mean? Then when you put it to the ratios, should the turnover, should you turn it 12 times? I don't know what it is, but for some reason we've always had this thought that with day supply and turnover rate, what should be, what should it be? Should it be 30 days? And where on earth does that come from? Um, I think we like to think 30 days because a lot of our prescriptions come in for a 30-day supply, but that's really kind of arbitrary. It's about the dollars, the dollar calculations. It's not about whether or not you have 30-day supply on the shelf, because think about your generic hydrocodone. Um, a 30-day supply for your dispensing, if you dispense 10,000 a month, and that means you need 10,000 tablets on the shelf at that time. Um, that's probably not what you do. If you dispense 10,000 over a month, you probably don't have any more than um, 1,000 tablets, like two 500 count bottles, on your shelf at any one time, because you're going to order it as you run out every couple of days. So remember, consider the factors that influence performance and use these different measurements as a guide to set goals objectively. Just make sure that you manage inventory as part of the larger goals of the pharmacy. So if capturing and retaining new business is a goal, then minimizing your out-of-stock situations may be more important than your turnover a day supply calculations. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about informatics. So there's some perpetual inventory systems like AmerisourceBergen's RxWorks. We also have Cardinal Health has their SIM product, if that's still out. So wholesalers typically will set it up so that it'll order automatically when received by the pharmacy, and then you use barcode scanning during your dispensing to help with accuracy. Point of sale scanning, so also automated dispensing system like Omnicell and Pyxis. We also may use things like RFID tags to monitor inventory and detect theft. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, like when you're shopping, that they'll have those little weird tags on something, so that if you walk out the door with it, it sets off an alarm. So essentially, technology can be used to maintain more precise measurements of inventory. But regardless of the technology used, computer systems are still vulnerable to human error or theft. So spot checking is still appropriate when using automated systems. I used to talk about this a lot back when I was with Alexa RX. The customers would ask, well, how secure is this machine that we're putting in the nursing home? Well, it's secured in the sense that it's locked, and technicians are the only ones that have access to it. The nurses or patients couldn't, have access to it. But if you had a large enough hammer, anyone could get access to it. So, any system can essentially be broken into. It's just important that we do spot checking and we have processes in place to identify theft or diversion. So inventory problems can harm your business, your profitability, performance, and ability to provide great patient care. Here's me back in 2013. I was dealing with a major issue. Our ordering system, for some reason, the wholesaler had it set up where when we ordered, so we were using the wholesaler ordering system, and I won't mention the wholesaler by name. If you've worked in a pharmacy, you might recognize these red totes. But anyway, we would order from this wholesaler, and we would send like 100 different items in our order. Well, for some reason, it was a glitch in their system. Their wholesale distribution site would put one bottle in one tote rather than putting however many bottles will fit in a tote. It would literally put one bottle to a tote, and I was racking my brain around this issue for weeks, and dealing with the vice president that serviced us from that wholesaler, and they acted like like there was this, we were doing something wrong, and the whole time it was a glitch in their system. Uh, and it was funny because they, totally acted like, oh, it's, yeah, there'll be times when you'll get extra totes, but it shouldn't be a big deal. So I would send them pictures like this, like, look, you guys are killing me with totes. Like, my technicians are spending hours putting up the order because it takes 20 minutes just to cut all the twist ties off of each one of these totes and unwrap them. So anyway, sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words. All right, so let's talk about a few inventory problems. The first one's out of stock. So this essentially is just when, just like I said, just like it sounds, the patient comes in for a medication and you don't have the drug. This essentially decreases customer satisfaction. I mean, it's real annoying to go in somewhere and they just don't have it, especially if you need an antibiotic or a pain medicine and you're not feeling well. And also could harm the patient. So what if it's a refill of a patient's, immunosuppressant for their for a kidney transplant, and there's no other pharmacy open, and you're out of it. So anyway, out of stocks can definitely be detrimental, but it's hard to control for some level of out of stocks. There's so many different drug products out there on the market that you're likely to run into out of stocks on a pretty routine basis. You just want to make sure whatever your pharmacy does, that you have kind of a goal for keeping out of stocks down. Overstock is sort of the opposite of what happens with out of stock. Overstock is essentially it causes increased loss due to the drugs actually expiring. So if you have too many drugs on the shelf, or too many bottles of a certain drug, and you're never going to use it, say you accidentally overordered 10 bottles instead of one, so it's because someone accidentally hit 10 instead of one when they ordered something. And it was like a special product that you ordered just for one-time use. Now you got 10 bottles. Well, those other 9 bottles are going to sit there until they expire. So it can cause a major headache. Also, if your wholesaler lets you return drugs, which most of them do, you're going to have increased operational costs because it takes time for your techs to send them back. And also it ties up cash in your business that could be used for other things. Unclaimed prescriptions, so these are the medications that we are in our will call area or sitting in the bin. A lot of times these are often taken out of the pharmacy inventory system because depending on the computer system, that's actually something that I don't go into a whole lot, but I've had a lot of experience as a manager. Pharmacy systems that deduct, if you have a perpetual system, if it deducts the inventory at the time of dispensing or at the time of point of sale, that's really important, because if it deducts the inventory at dispensing, when you go to reorder, you will, if it falls below your par level, your system will automatically reorder another bottle. So if you dispense the drug and it goes in a will call bin and then a patient never picks it up, you may, by the time you realize that the patient's never coming to get it, you've now ordered a second bottle of that stuff. So unclaimed prescriptions can really cause a lot of havoc on your inventory. So managing that, those, what we say like return to stocks or putbacks, or I don't know, I've heard pharmacies call them different things. Inefficient ordering, so lots of inefficient ordering practices. Again, not relying on your perpetual systems, or not using good computer, not updating our perpetual inventory systems in the computer, doing a lot of manual ordering. And then we have shrinkage. Shrinkage can be anything from dropping a pill on the floor to somebody stealing a 100-count bottle out of your pharmacy. I have experienced this, and this is not fun when you find out a member of your staff has walked out with a bunch of controlled substances. Pharmacy inventory is highly sought after. Sometimes the internal theft is difficult to spot, and sometimes even good people do stupid things. So when I was a pharmacy manager, my second pharmacy that I managed, I had a really good pharmacy technician who was friendly to customers, did a great job. Always came in on time and did all the things that you'd want as a pharmacy technician. Well, come to find out, he ran into some financial troubles, wrecked his car, and did some other things, and realized that hey, he could get away with, maybe he could just steal a bottle of hydrocodone, sell it to the drug dealer, make a quick $500 or whatever it was, and he probably made a lot more than that. It took a few weeks for me to catch him red-handed, but and it took some different things that I had to do. And one of the things is just having multiple levels of accountability. I kind of go with that Ronald Reagan adage that you trust but verify. Now, this wasn't my technician, but here's an example. And if you just Google, pharmacy technician stealing, I'm sure you'll find a handful of news stories where you have a pharmacy technician that stole pills from a pharmacy. Again, someone back in Louisville, my old stomping ground. Looks like she stole diazepam, which is against controlled substance. So the manager should know where all the cameras are, and I'm kind of big on only the manager knowing where these cameras are, because if the technicians or other pharmacists that aren't, that aren't responsible for this, if they know where the cameras are, they may be smarter about how they steal. Um, Spot checking can sometimes only take a few minutes, but you can catch problems early. So, in order for me to catch the technician that was stealing, I had to come in at 5 o'clock in the morning before the pharmacy opened and do some manual counts, and then I would watch the cameras, throughout the day, or I would basically not. I didn't want the pharmacy staff to know that I was doing those spot checks, so I'd do it before the shift, before the pharmacy opens, and then I'd come in late at night after the pharmacy closes to see if that was a day where the technician stole pills, and then I'd go back and watch the camera during that day. So external theft is also a risk for pharmacies, and this is kind of one of the scary things that we hope we never encounter. The location and layout may actually help deter external theft. So one thing, not only is it good to as just good customer service to acknowledge everyone that comes in the pharmacy, it may actually prevent theft because you have to understand that if someone comes in, like you see this picture of this person in Bismarck, they got a mask on and a hoodie and they're trying not to be recognized, there's a really good chance that this person actually walked into the pharmacy the day before or 2 or 3 days before, walked in, scoped the place out, right? They like walked in, acted like they were buying some cough drops or something, but they were doing that to kind of check everything out and see what the layout was. Well, if you acknowledge everyone that comes in when they're not wearing a mask, um, it may freak out a potential robber that's trying to scope out the place and trying to be unnoticed because they'll be like, oh crap, they spotted me. I better not come back because they might recognize me. So, that's just another, other than just being a nice person, it actually might prevent future theft. Never leave the pharmacy unattended. I can't tell you the number of videos I've seen where like the pharmacist goes to the bathroom and within a 5 minute window someone literally jumps the shelf, grabs a bottle and takes off. I mean, it's crazy. Um, and then I cannot repeat this enough. If a potentially armed robber confronts you and says, "Hey, give me all your hydrocodone or whatever," do not be a hero. Um, this is, not only do companies, really could even punish you if you did try to, do something. One, you don't know if they're truly armed or not. A lot of times, like this assailant here may not actually be armed. He's got his hands in his pockets. A lot of times they'll look like they have a gun. They'll kind of hold like a toy gun or hold like a stapler or something and act like they've got a gun. But the thing is you don't want to test them out. I mean, if they have a gun, they may be unstable. They may be, and again, their adrenaline's going to be rushed, going to be up because they're robbing the place. You just don't want to do anything that might lead to a gun going off, and not only harming yourself, but living with yourself if one of your technicians ever were to be hurt in a robbery where you tried to play Batman. So let's kind of go over a few of the things we talked about today. Some of the methods that we talked about, the visual, periodic, and perpetual methods, thinking about how each one of those can be good and bad. Also, inventory performance measures that really you need multiple measurements. We talked about value, day supply, and turnover. But also we talked about other factors that contribute to performance. We mentioned informatics systems that can enhance inventory management. And we touched on some inventory problems, mainly the common ones like overstock, out of stock, unclaimed scripts. And then we talked about secure inventory management and trying to reduce shrinkage. So I hope that answers, or hope that helps today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. Here are some references and some more background information for your information.